Hello everyone and welcome, and today we review, I review Mattel's Ultimate Edition Ric Flair. Woo! Yes. Ric Flair, of course, is one of the biggest names pro wrestling has ever had. And, he earned that. He really has. He really has earned that because, let's face it, he was the backbone of the NWA for the entire 80s, just like Hulk Hogan was the backbone of the WWF. Now, I won't say this is my favorite for Ric Flair, but you know what, it's damn good. Yeah, I think I would have liked to see him maybe one of the blue robes or one of the black robes. Those two are probably my favorite robes for Ric Flair. Had this guy way back when. This is such an improvement. It's heads and shoulders above any of the previous Ric Flair figures I've had. And I'm just really glad to have a really good Ric Flair in my collection. Got a little issue with the face sculpt. Not major. I'm not going to complain too much. It's a decent likeness. And of course you get the woo head along with it. So that's kind of fun. You gotta have the woo, right? That's Ric Flair's calling card. Woo! So, how much can I talk about Ric Flair? It's like, seen Ric Flair several times in several iterations, all the way up to that, end of the Ruthless Aggression era, when he was wrestling again. Couldn't believe it. It was fun to kind of watch him and go back with that. It was a interesting time, to say the least. I really can't say I've never enjoyed a Ric Flair match, win, lose, or draw. It's Ric Flair, man. That's it. It's Ric Flair. And, always we go back to the botch of WrestleMania when Vince almost had a Ric Flair Hulk Hogan main event, which should have happened. Now, here's the way I think it was botched. And I look at it a little differently. Okay. Flair himself says, he didn't have much exposure in the Northeast. I don't know how, because, I kind of sort of live in the South. I'm kind of borderline. But, we had TVS. And my grandparents lived in Boston. We would go up to Boston, and they had TBS on their cable, but they had a lot more cable stations than we did. So, possibly it got lost in the shuffle? I don't know. Turner wasn't quite the big mogul he was yet. So, he had CNN. That was going for him. But, wrestling really made Turner's empire. And a lot of people like to bemoan that, but, that's the reality. So, and in fairness, Flair and Hogan they said they did some house shows, and Flair and Hogan did sell out the Madison Square Garden. So, or not Madison Square, Boston Garden. But they apparently wasn't good reaction from the Madison Square Garden crowd. That got my gardens mixed up there, sorry. And so I always wondered about that. Why didn't Flair and Hogan jive so well? That's what Flair says. I don't necessarily believe that. I think one thing is that WWF fans at the time were very majorly WWF. Kids especially. It was marketed to kids. Let's face it, WWF was marketed to kids. Whereas NWA was more for the adults who grew up. So, you had that going on. And, Flair kind of fit in with the adult crowd. And I think one thing was the timing was a little off. I think if you'd waited a year and maybe just built Flair up a little bit in the Northeast. And I don't see any reason why not to, because let's face it, Hogan was the guy that was over in that region, in that part of the world. But Flair was just as over. I think he was just as over. People knew he was the NWA champ. They established that right from the start. And then, he got the WWF championship. Let them run with it. Let Savage and Flair have their match at WrestleMania 8. Go through that motion. Have Flair have some really good matches. Show what he can do. Build him up. He looks unstoppable. He looks unbeatable. And let him be a heel. I mean, just let him be a heel. You know, he could have tons of matches. Now, that would have kind of stymied Bret Hart's career, but, you know, hey, just saying. And then, you know, you can have Hogan and Flair at WrestleMania 9. And then it's a bigger deal, okay? I don't know why nobody thought about this. What's the problem with that? I mean, you know, we were used to long reigns of championships. It was not a big deal. So, yeah, I mean, I think it could work. But such is life. I mean, that was my thoughts. I thought it was built too quickly. I mean, Hogan and Flair didn't really have any interaction before he lost to The Undertaker. And then they had that questionable finish and then da-da-da. Okay, back to the Flair figure. I really like this figure, though. I mean, it is that classic Nature Boy Ric Flair that we all know and love. I mean, you can't deny it. I mean, and he's got those golden locks that he had. You know, how many times he put a hair versus hair match and then ends up in a draw? Oh, Flair got us again. And yeah, it's a really good outfit. I mean, of course, it's Ultimate Edition articulation, fantastic. And here's the thing I can't wait for is, according to what you know, we've seen some pictures of Powertown USA. I can't wait for Magnum TA because I'm going to have him versus Ric Flair as a centerpiece on my shelf. That's it. Gotta go there. Okay, Ultimates A. You know, Ultimates, it's hard not to give 5 stars to them because they are ultimate. They're really great. And again, Ric Flair is a favorite of mine. I kind of want to see another one, and I hope they do another one with a different color and different style robe. But this one will do just fine for now. I really like it. It's a fantastic one. And that's it. That's what I have to say about Ric Flair. And oh, the belt is, of course, magnificent. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up here for Infinite Realms. Don't forget to like and subscribe.